All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second Discord TED Talk. This one is going to be focused on load-bearing equipment. Thankfully, we have Zek here, who's going to walk us through some of the essentials about load-bearing equipment. He's going to provide his perspective in terms of what kind of equipment one can consider, what kind of utilization you can have, his experiences with load-bearing equipment, and then we'll have others chime in terms of what examples they have once we get to that portion. By the end of it, we'll have some Q&A to those who are in the chat, and if there's no questions, we can end the recording early. So I'm going to pass it on now to Zek, and we can get it started.
All right. Hello. You know who I am. So when we're talking about load-bearing equipment, there's 4, and then with an asterisk 5 general kinds of gear we're going to be discussing. That's going to be sort of in order of price range: belts, chest rigs, backpacks, plate carriers, and slings. Some of these are more integral than others. Some of these are optional. Some of these you will never use unless you're, invested in certain applications. But I think what's important is to understand sort of the ethos behind load-bearing equipment. As the name suggests, you're talking about stuff that's meant to aid in your ability to carry gear on you, and sort of what that entails. If you look back through the past century, we've made massive improvements in the amount of just sheer garbage that can be loaded onto the human body while still having the ability for an individual to maintain sort of fighting capability or just movement capability in general. So there's a popular piece of boomer knowledge thrown around about like soldiers in Afghanistan being loaded down with 100 pounds of kit plus the gun, which sounds just like a stupid overloading of garbage onto an 18-year-old high school graduate. But in reality, 50 years ago, that would be unheard of. We didn't have carriage systems half a century ago to enable the human body to endure that kind of load for prolonged periods of time. You're going to hear a lot when I give these explanations about use case as well. Fortunately for us, we don't have to schlep 100 pounds of garbage through a desert. So some of the things that maybe people in the past adopted might not necessarily apply to us today. But first, let's give sort of an overview of the sort of types of stuff we're talking about. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so I just have a bunch of product pages up. These are a mixture of things that I personally have used and just sort of give a good overview of the kind of gear we're talking about. First thing we're going to talk about is belts. I have 2 pulled up here. These are the Blue Alpha Hybrid EDC belt and the AWS SMU operator belt. Yeah, don't look at my bookmarks. One of these I have, one of these I've used, and I've used analog of. Why a belt? First and most important case for a belt is: are you carrying a sidearm? Is a handgun or similar, belt-mounted platform part of your system? If yes, you should probably have a belt. If for whatever reason handgun doesn't fit into your fucking basement LARP big igloo epic gamer scenario, then maybe you don't really require a belt. If you do require a sidearm and don't like belts, yes, things like chest rig mounted holsters or plate carry mounted holsters or shoulder holsters are an option. By and large, they're going to be extremely niche applications that are going to be dwarfed by the usability of a belt mounted system. Why do we like belts? Belts load the hips. The hips are the primary sort of part of the human body that you really want to distribute load onto. The hip girdle is meant to sort of carry a load. Having it dispersed there is going to do wonders for both longevity as well as just maneuverability when you're getting up to get a snack from the fridge or maneuvering on a flat range or doing anything. Downside to belts, building one out properly with all the bells and whistles is expensive. Uh, Higher end belts, you're looking at 150 bucks. Holster, you're looking at money. All the shit that can go on it, you're looking at cash on cash on cash. Belts are generally going to be a good starting point, though. First and foremost concern is in a lot of people's mind is, well, I want to use my kit, but I look like a fucking goober showing up to the range in my chest rig or my plate carrier. Yeah, you kind of do. You look like a lot less of a goober showing up with just a belt, and it'll accomplish most of the same stuff. Moving on from there. Last thing on the belts. There's going to be two main kinds. There's going to be belts with an integrated mounting system. Usually, you're going to find it's going to be Molly. There's a few other weird hook and loop systems that are on the market, but Molly's the big one. You're also going to find slick belts. There's no Molly on these. That means you know, your accessories are going to be limited to things that come in belt loop format or what you're able to sort of jerry rig and fit on there yourself. Having run both systems, Molly is going to be vastly superior. Your retention is better. You have a wider range of options to choose from. Only downside, cost more. Moving on from belts, we have chest rigs. Um, why chest rig? Well, it's the easiest way to carry, the meme term is mission essential, or I like purpose oriented equipment on your body. Um, while the hips are going to be better to load, you cannot cram as much shit onto a belt as you can onto a rig that is strapped around your torso. Um, this is sort of the ethos of what a chest rig is. It has pockets to carry magazines and pockets to carry small things that are not magazines. These like repro Chicom chest rigs, the Type 83 rigs, are more than enough for Joe Blow, sheepdog lark man. They're a great jumping off point if you don't have a lot of money. One thing that's sort of big on these that even some of the really high end stuff doesn't accommodate for properly is these pouches can be used to fit things in them that are not magazines. Contrary to popular belief, you're probably not going to be getting in if we're in New Jersey, 50 round gunfight, or if we're in a better state, prolonged fucking like 150 round fight. You don't really need to carry 4 mags all the time. Things you do need to carry more often: radio, water, snacks, stupid shit that you find that looks cool, a nicely shaped rock. All of these can be accommodated by a Chicom rig. It's one of the sort of hidden graces of the simpler stuff. Um, Downside: low retention, shittily made, not great for looking cool. This is sort of the other side of the chest rig game. This is Velocity Systems rig, formerly Mayflower. This is a very common pattern of rig. You have a front placard with pouches meant for magazines, but that can hold other stuff. You have positive retention in the form of shot cord bungees. And then you also have flaps on the side. Flaps can be used to hold things. In the middle, you see those are kind of purpose built for pistol magazines, but they can hold flashlights, Leathermans, small grenades. You have a couple of larger pouches to hold, bigger items. You can fit phones in these. I would not recommend fitting phones in these because if you go prone, you will break your phone. And on the side, you have things for radio pouches. You also have Swift clip integration, as well as routing for things like wires or drinking tubes for bladders. This is sort of the maximal build out of what a chest rig is going to be. Most of them are going to have a Swift clip interface. The other sort of top end of chest rigs are big molly rigs that are just essentially vests with molly webbing on them that you latch shit onto. There's a time and a place for those. Generally going to be better if you're building something that's geared towards a very specific thing. For all intents and purposes, something like this is going to be great for what you get. You're not really going to get something. There's nothing this cannot do. There's something a more customized rig, jack of all trades, sort of thing. And then the last sort of thing we got is the micro rigs. This is what I run. Um, it's significantly smaller than the previous rig, which lends itself to the natural implications that come as a result of slimming down your kit. You can carry less things. Um, at most, I can fit 3 AR mags in mine. I can also fit 2 pistol mags. Micro rigs are sort of beginning to fall out of favor, and I'm kind of grateful for that. There's a lot of micro rigs on the market. I would say place the most value in the ones that can serve a dual purpose as both a standalone rig and a placard for something like a plate carrier if you choose to go up to one. That way you're not stuck, only being able to carry so much stuff. Yes, you can, in theory, build these out to be bigger. I don't know if Haley's got a picture here. Something like this. He's got stuff on the bottom, backpack on the back. You can build them out. You're going to be spending a lot more money, and you're going to be sort of slaved into using proprietary stuff. I personally would not recommend a micro rig to somebody who is starting out budget. I think it's a very cost ineffective way of building out sort of the genesis of a kit. Next up, we're going to do backpacks. Backpacks are a very neglected piece of kit because there's no use for one when you're on a flat range taking videos for Instagram or shooting at competition or USPSA competitions. Backpacks are a very sort of new thing for what you're gonna see, like the new wave of gun guys getting into. You don't really see many people taking pictures of their backpacks when they're displaying their kit for Reddit karma. Backpacks are extremely invaluable. Why is that? Because they can carry a fuck ton of stuff really easily, and they're extremely cheap at the low end. Backpacks are one of those things where there's absolutely no increase in what you really get between the $50 thing until you get to $250. Something like this, a USGI surplus 3-day assault pack will serve your needs better than any $100 backpack, any $150 backpack, until you get up to like the really high end Gucci shit. These can have things lashed onto them. They can have shit stuffed in them. You're talking about just about anything. And the main thing on these is the stitching is good, the straps won't break, and you can tie shit to it. With like a JanSport backpack, those straps will break if you try to load it excessively. They do not have stuff on the outside for you to really run cord through to throw things on, like a sleeping bag or anything like that. And then you got the higher end bags, like this is the one I run, where it's just fucking massive. It's got a belt system built in. It's just this is Mr. Cool Guy bag. Downside, it's $300 fucking dollars. Downside, it's $300 fucking dollars. But you get a lot more load carryability internally. One thing that sort of gets muddled with the backpacks is the gear that you store in a backpack is not the same gear that you want on your belt, is not the same gear that you want on your rig, is not the same gear that you want on your gun. Backpacks have the major downside of inaccessibility while you are actually doing something. You either A, need to completely doff the pack, which takes time, and in a lot of cases is going to involve unslinging your rifle if you have a rifle slung. The only other scenario is maybe you have a buddy and you've described in detail to your friend the intricacies of how your pack is laid out. Unfortunately, that requires having friends. Only store things in the backpack that are either A, replenishments for first line gear, that's ammo, batteries, fighting quote unquote stuff, or things that are third line, stuff that you are never going to need in a pinch. 10, spare clothes, spare shoes, anything that you can afford to take the time to get to. If you're going to say, oh shit, oh fuck, I need the thing, that thing better not be in the back. So this is one of the sort of asterisk things for LB and its plate carriers. From a purely load-bearing perspective, a plate carrier is a chest rig, but big. The main thing I want to talk about with plate carriers are like trends in modern modularity and sort of things to not do. I'm not going to talk about armor. This is not the armor DTT. This is sort of the best complete plate carrier you can get for the money. It's either this or the defense mechanisms one that you actually have to build out. You get straps that are properly made, a full cummerbund that is properly made, um, and you get widely adopted mounting systems. You have Molly, Velcro, and Swift clips. On the back, you have Velcro and Molly. You need one, at least one of these things on a PC, if not all three. They are the most widely used mounting systems available for modern gear. Do not neglect those. Slick plate carriers are cool. This is not them. They are not load bearing equipment. One thing I want to touch on, this is the Velocity Scarab. It's another Velocity product. I'm just picking this out because I know off the top of my head that it has it. This right here, these zipper-on back placards, these have become very popular recently. I'm going to personally recommend shying away from this stuff. The usability of a Velcro back piece is for people that have to swap between completely different sets of gear for completely different applications without making modifications to their base kit. You do not need this. You might want it, but are you really going to build out multiple back plates for different applications when the span of your different applications is going to one range or the other and fucking around in the woods? Probably not. This is like the end game Gucci LARP gear accumulator thing. Last thing for the plate carriers, this is a Cry JPC. This is a good plate carrier. This is one of the biggest offenders of the fad of slick plate carriers. Good quality, cheap plates will break this plate carrier. Hesco 4400s weigh 8 pounds each. 16 pounds of plates in this carrier will destroy the straps. You will not be able to add stuff to this system while retaining its core purpose, which is being a lightweight and minimal vest. You could buy a Cry JPC, fill it with plates that'll break it, and completely build it out into a big boy warfighting plate carrier for $400. Or you could just buy this. The straps aren't going to break, and it already has all the stuff you want. Cry is a cool company. Don't buy their stuff if you don't have a purpose for it. Slings are only really technically load-bearing equipment, but you should have a good sling anyway. This is the one that I'm going to recommend until the day I die because they're great. Another one would be the Viking Tactics sling. The only extrapolation I'm going to do on sling setups is please, please, please do not buy a solely 3-point or a solely 1-point sling. If you must buy a sling that cannot become easily modified, make it a 2-point. Just do it. So from there, we have, we're going to stop the screen share, but there's a few things that are sort of becoming more prevalent in the gun community and the gear community as far as common trends and load bearing equipment. There's a couple like skewed representations of what LBE is, what it's for, how you should really be using it. At the end of the day, it comes down to what you're going to be doing most often with your stuff. I do a lot of hiking, I do a lot of camping, I do a lot of flat range shooting, I do a lot of shooting from weird positions. It's important to me that my gear be able to be changed out for those different applications. You'll see in a lot of the stuff I talk about being able to rip shit off my kit and put shit on my kit. That's because I use the same stuff for multiple different applications that are extremely variable. You do not need a different set of kit for all the things you do. If I was going to build a different kit for hiking, for camping, for shooting at the flat range, and for, doing like precision planking, I'd be homeless. I'd be too much fucking money. Make good decisions about the stuff you're purchasing. And a good sort of line to ride is whenever you're buying something that you're going, trust to either look cool on the internet or potentially play a part in saving your life, make sure that it's got more than one function. There's a lot of stuff out there that is sort of optimized to the extent that it's become pigeonholed into only being used for one thing. A good example is Kydex magazine pouches. Awesome. Love Kydex magazine pouches, but they can only hold magazines. Try to fit a phone in a Kydex mag pouch. It either won't fit in the pouch or it's going to fall right out. Try to fit a water bottle in a Kydex mag pouch. Won't work. Try to fit a leather in a Kydex mag pouch. Maybe it'll work if you have a really variable one like the S-Tax, Haley Strategics. Some of the more gamer Kydex pouches will not fit Leathermans. They will not fit flashlights. If they do, they won't retain properly. If you're not just going to use, your belt, your chest rig, your plate carrier to look cool on the range, and it's not specifically, okay, I'm using this to do gun stuff, maybe consider alternative options, even though Kydex is, king when you look on Instagram. Other big thing is make sure you can actually move with your kit on, and make sure you can carry all the stuff you actually need on your kit. Your kit might look awesome. You have, the Desert Night camo limited edition Gucci dripped up gamer shit. It doesn't matter if, say, you have a radio mounted on your shooting side and you can't actually comfortably shoulder your rifle because you bought a big whip antenna and now it's in the way. You might be able to, get in a prolonged fucking 3-hour North Hollywood gunfight with the police. It doesn't really matter if you got mags shingled 3 deep on the front of your chest, and when you go prone, you look like a camel. You might have a super awesome, custom camo backpack. Doesn't really matter if this, the straps tear off of it when you take it into the woods, and now you've spilled your food and your shelter for 3 days all over the ground, and you look like a dipshit and a bear eats you. Make sure you're making intelligent purchases. Do not just buy something solely because it looks cool. And I'm saying that as someone who has bought something solely because it looks cool, only have it break. And I've had friends who have bought something just off a brand name because it looks cool. Spoiler, it breaks. There are going to be certain things that you have to figure out for yourself that I can't really, talk to you about. And that's, again, going to come down to what are you planning to do? Some of this stuff is, how does your body work? How do you move properly? Maybe like a common belt configuration doesn't work for you because you have a super short torso and arms like an orangutan, and you absolutely have to run something like a drop leg holster in order to not completely encumber yourself drawing your weapon in a stressful scenario. Maybe you have just stupidly proportioned shoulders that necessitate the absolute maximum amount of sling real estate. And the common conception of, one out front left, one in the rear right doesn't work for you for your sling. Maybe you have to adjust it. Don't be afraid to experiment with new things, try them out to see if they work better for you. And do not take anything anyone says as, axiomatic truths. Even, if I tell you you're a fucking dipshit and you should listen to what I say, I don't know you, you know you. Figure it out. You have to, unfortunately, actually put in effort to find out the optimal configuration for your kit. The information that I'm giving you is a good jumping off point, but do your homework. One of the last things I'm going to touch on is, because I use the use case buzzword a lot. What is a use case? Use case boils down to, for me, 4 things. That's what, where, with who, and for how long. What are you doing? Where are you going to be doing it? Who are you going to be doing it with? How many people are you doing it yourself? And for how long? Are you doing this for 3 hours when you go to the range? Or are you doing this for a week when you go backpack? Ask yourself these 4 questions when considering if a piece of gear fits into your your use case, your purchasing habit, the existing kit you have. What are you doing? I'm only going to the flat range and plinking. Okay, maybe you don't need a fucking backpack that could sustain you for a week. Maybe you don't need a plate carrier. Maybe you don't need a number of things, right? Maybe your whole thing is, I'm preparing for a bug in when Mr. Big Boy Riot happens and I have to defend my stash of hot pockets. Well, then maybe a belt not super useful for you. You're going to be sedentary a lot. You're not going to be moving. In that case, maybe plate carriers because you're going to have 30 pounds of shit strapped to you, but it's not a problem because you're in your fucking extra wide DX Racer gaming chair. Where? Are you going to be outside for long periods of time? If so, maybe integrate some fucking water into your kit. Run a bladder. They're extremely cheap. Buy one. Are you going to be doing something in extreme hot or cold temperatures? Okay, plan for it. Are you going to be doing something where you get wet? Okay, maybe we bring like extra fucking clothing with us. I cannot tell you the amount of times, if you've been in scouts, you've probably seen it happen, that somebody has been on a camping trip, gotten rained on, and had a spare change of clothes. Best case scenario, your buddies make fun of you. Worst case scenario, you contract, you get hypothermia and have to be fucking hurried out and ruin the trip for everyone. With who? This is more of a are you alone sort of thing. But if you're, going solo bolo, maybe, like I have it, strapping a backpack to your bag or to your back that can't be removed without doffing your entire kit is not the best idea. Because I know from firsthand experience, I can't get to that shit in under a minute. I have to take all my stuff off, unsling the removal, put it down, open the bag, yada yada. With who is also sort of an expansion to first aid gear, which again, this isn't a talk on first aid gear, but it is something that people, buy, should know how to use, will hopefully never have to use. God forbid you do. You want to make sure that you are not carrying something that only you know how to use. If you are the sole operator of a piece of gear that you have, you better be sure that that gear is not essential to whatever you are doing. If you are going backpacking and you're the only one who's bringing maps, number one, that's dumb. Give everyone a map. Number two, you should not be the only one who can read a map. You really have to know, your buddies. Like, hopefully, you know them pretty well because they're your buddies. But sometimes you take new people into the woods with you. Sometimes you take people to the gun range with you, and they break your shotgun with shitty ammo. For how long? This is more of a consideration for the backpacks than anything else, but it can be extrapolated to include flat range and even in some cases competition shooting. Maybe you're shooting a course that requires an exorbitant amount of ammunition. We're in New Jersey. I've seen Sway's belt. He's got like 60 gajillion fucking magazines on it. Probably because he's running courses that are going to have a count around 50. We're in a free state. We need, what, 3 or 4 mags to accomplish? Yeah, well, you. We're in New Jersey. Better run 6 mags because you're going to miss about 5 shots. For how long extrapolates to, ammo carriage and then sustenance, things like food. How much food do you need for a certain amount of time? Well, your backpack better be able to carry it because otherwise you're going to be stealing my food. I'm going to get mad at you, and then I'm going to make fun of you on Discord in a week when we get home. You don't want that. For how long is also a big thing with water. Even if you're doing things like day hikes, do not underestimate the ability of dehydration to completely fuck you, especially because, I myself am an old man now. Some of you are a little on the older side. You probably have felt the effects of severe dehydration in your decrepit age. It sucks. Make sure that you have at least one water carriage system on you if you're either going on hikes, going camping, even going out on like an uncovered range on a hot day. It's not fun having to deal with severe dehydration when you're trying to shoot guns. Beyond that is just things like personal recommendations. That's all I really have left. I'm not gonna spend a whole time doing that because I shill all of my shit every day. If you don't know what I recommend, stick around for about a week and you'll know just about everything I've ever tried, liked, disliked, and so on and so forth. Things that I can definitely recommend against: do not buy shitty plates. Do not buy steel armor. Do not buy heavy duty load carriage systems, things designed to take more than 20 pounds of shit. with the expectation that they will hold up to serious use. Uh, Trying to think of something else that you should not buy, and I can't really think of it. I guess final takeaway: do not just copy people blindly because you think what they have looks cool. A really, really big example of this that has come into play very recently is the guy who runs Spiritus Systems notably carried like a hatchet or a tomahawk or something on his belt while doing stupid shit in Syria. And I've unironically seen multiple people start incorporating that into their belt. That is an example of extremely specific kit for an extremely specific reason that you are never going to do. And if you've ever walked around in the woods with a fucking Fisker clipped to your hip, it sucks. I would never want to shoot with that there. Try going prone or falling on your ass with a fucking hatchet there. You're lucky if you don't fucking either snap the hash or snap the fucking tailbone, bud. Other big thing in recent history is people just fucking throwing bolt cutters onto their back. But I hate to break it to you, you are not assaulting an Iraqi chemical weapons compound. You do not need to bring multicam bolt cutters with you anywhere. Keep it in your truck. That's about all I've got. No, woodland's not okay. Woodland is horrible for bolt cutters. Do you see fucking fences in the woods that need bolt cutting? No. Climb over it. There's trees. So I don't know how you want to go about enabling people to ask questions if they've got them. But
Absolutely. So I appreciate walking us through that. That was one, insightful. It was nice seeing you formulate and put a lot of things in front of us. I know you do. Sometimes you throw a lot out there, but it seems a little disconnected because as it goes into discussion. But it's nice to see it all formulated in a nice contextualized and flowy topic talk. So I appreciate the information you're giving. I'm going to open it up for those in the server. If they have questions, to type them out in chat or just say you have a question and I'll give you the voice perms. While we wait for that, I saw Forks had one, so I'll give him permission in a sec. He might have to join and rejoin just because of the way Discord works, so I'll just give him the role now and he can join and rejoin. But I had a couple questions actually, but I'll just ask one while I wait. When you were talking about attachment methods for belts, you'd mentioned Molly versus non-Molly. Is there a similarity in how you attach gear to this LBE stuff when you go across equipment? So between belts, between chest rigs, backpacks and stuff, is there something that's universal that some beginners can consider and be like, oh, this is pretty easy. I know I can attach things universally across.
so yeah, in terms of like full modularity, if you're looking for something, so a good example of a piece of kit that's very very versatile like this is GP pouches or general purpose pouches. A GP pouch can be mounted just about anywhere above the knee and still be pretty useful. There are some other really really early like GWAT sort of quasi belt, quasi like battle kilt setups that are like molly around, the upper thigh. Not in favor anymore, but it was a thing. GP pouch there, GP pouch on the belt, GP pouch on the rear or even the top end near the sternum on the chest rig, GP pouch on the sides for the plate carrier. That's something that can be mounted everywhere. If you're doing something like that where you're really doing hardcore experimentation, I'm gonna have to recommend Molly just because number one, good retention. You get an actual good experience using the thing as opposed to not liking your experience orienting your kit in a certain way because the attachment method sucks as opposed to the piece of gear sucking. Number two, fucking everything is Molly. And the nicest thing about it is if even if you have something that is not does not inherently lend itself towards traditional attachment. You can run cord, you can run fabric, and you can make it work because it's an extremely simple system that relies on a mixture of positive and negative space retention. Things I would not recommend are pure Velcro. I would not recommend a purely Velcro-based attachment system for anything for serious use. That's bordering on like airsoft level thing. And there's sort of a gotcha here, but like two belt systems with an inner and outer belt is pure Velcro. That's really not the same because You look at how the belt connects. It's a positive, high rate buckle actually connecting something and securing it on the hip girdle, which is a non-mobile platform. So if you're talking about like what pattern would I recommend for attaching stuff the first time, Molly.
Gotcha.
Always going to be Molly.
And you said GP pouch, like literally G is in God and P is in penis?
General purpose pouch. If you
Okay.
Google GP pouch, a bunch of different things will come up. First Spear makes a bunch of good ones. ATS Tactical makes a bunch of good ones. GP pouch. Think of it like an IFAC for things that are not just medical gear. It's a pouch that you can put things in.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool.
Uh,
Forks. You had a
yeah.
question?
So forks. You asked about belt suspenders from the shoulders.
Oh well, yeah, I have a whole bunch.
Okay, so
Because I was
which,
looking for the belt part. Like I know
right.
from hiking and camping and shit that I don't know if you mentioned it. You want most of the weight actually on your hips.
Yeah.
For
So
for
yeah.
backpack.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. So I'm actually gonna pirate that or steal that for a second.
Yeah.
The second backpack that I displayed, the DG3, that I'm actually going to throw back up on the screen right now because this is a really good thing, but I didn't want to touch on in detail because I'm a bit of a biomechanics nut and I will spurg out on it super hard. This here
Mhm.
is like the most beneficial advancement in load bearing technology for the modern age. If you look at even an Alice pack has the same thing. They are meant to be cinched around the, right above the hips to put pressure on the lumbar spine, take that pressure away from the shoulders, and put that pressure into the hip girdle where the human body is designed to carry the most, what is it? Uh, Ambulant weight. That's weight that you are carrying while you are ambulating, walking, moving. The more you can stress loading that part of the body versus things like your shoulders, your arms, the better. So yeah, and anything that directs load down into the hip girdle, good. We like that.
Yep.
All right.
That my question. And then so about the on your regular belt. I don't know if you went over. Are you lacing your inner Velcro belt through your belt loops? Or are you
Yes, I am.
okay?
So for my belts, I am not a big fan of the belly band belts. They have a time and a place, but for me, they don't really do it. You get a lot less, secure retention, and it's also sort of a comfort thing. I've run the belly bands a few times. You can get them down pretty nice and tight. Usually, they're a little annoying to run uh, over the top of another belt, like a conventional, buckle pant belt, because the buckles will play with each other, they'll clank, it'll be annoying. And if you're going to situate it in an area that is not that, you're gonna get either A, shifting, or B, undue compression on your body. So some people will like wrap them sort of more around the midsection. Eh,
Okay.
I wouldn't really go for it. I'm a big fan of the inner belt run through belt loops and outer belt on top of it. Um, the biggest gotcha for that is if you are doing something where you need to be wearing a lot of base layer, um, extremely cold environment, for example, or something where for whatever reason you don't have belt loops. Um, I will say firsthand, I've gone to the range a couple of times and gotten down into compression shorts to take stupid pictures to post on the internet. And I'll run belly belt because I'm not wearing fucking pants. But I would not recommend doing that.
Okay. Just not your personal preference.
Yeah,
The other thing was well, because literally at work, I wear a climbing belt.
yeah.
Right. I
So
don't know
you're
if you
talking
ever.
about like a suspender based
It's
sleeve
literally well,
system.
no, because it also goes around your. It can go around in your belt loops, but it's your hips and
Yeah,
there's suspenders as well. But it literally it distributes the weight of your body basically
yeah. So
directly into your feet.
I actually am a fan of the. That was one of the things I would pull up. I didn't end up doing it because the only good examples I could find are the Alice webbing system, which is not really a one to what you're talking about, and the really good one is the Velocity Jungle Kit, but it is $600 for no reason, and I had no purpose putting it on there. The suspender based system is one of the most effective sort of load carriage distribution things that you can do. The downside of it is it significantly restricts mobility, and in most cases, if you're making full use of it, it's going to restrict your ability to actually shoot properly because a lot of those load systems, especially some of the current like German issue ones, you're talking about having pouches situated all the way up, sort of the suspenders, things like hooked on right where you would want to put the stock. Um, a good example of a system like this is actually the like Cry's system. So Cry has their own line of, they're actually belly belts. They are very big, and they are meant to be integrated both up and down. They can be integrated down to go with drop leg systems or actually, thigh based soft or hard armor. They can also be integrated up to go in concert with the AVS load bearing system, or Cry does sell suspenders that go with them. I think that this is sort of the thing that you're going to want if, for whatever reason, number one, don't really want armor, and number two, you're really, really loading down the build. Because, the hip based load carriage is great. At some point, you will need secondary support through usually the shoulders, just because past a certain point, that load on your hips is going to start sinking, and you either a your pants fall down or b your belt starts to sag,
Yep.
unless you are built like a tyrannosaurus and just have big childbearing hips, which most of us do not.
Right. Fair point. I really didn't have anything else.
Cool. I had a couple other basic questions while we wait for anyone else in chat. If you guys, again, you want to ask questions, feel free to put them in chat. We can bring them up, or let me know and I can give you the voice perms, and all you got to do is rejoin so you can unmute properly. Second question I had here was you mentioned placards. Can you go into more detail about what that is, what the benefit of that
Right.
for?
So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a visual aid again. So a placard is sort of a catch-all term for the thing that goes on the front of a plate carrier. Disregard my Scarlett Johansson recommendation. So here we have, the velocity plate carrier that I talked about earlier. You'll notice that there's nothing here on the front. You don't have much. If we actually look at the Cry JPC in contrast, it is one of the ones that does actually come with a kangaroo pouch. I don't know if it wants to let me zoom in. Do this. We do actually have a built-in placard here. Out of the box, this will hold magazine. This will not. All right, Maple is telling me that the JPC2 does not have kangaroo pouches. So that is a good clarification. Do not expect kangaroo pouches on the JPC2.
Okay, so basically placards are just attachment pouches that you put in
placard
front.
placard is thing that goes on the front. 99.999% of the time, when you hear someone talking about a placard, they mean thing to hold magazines on the front of the plate carrier.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Thank you. Other last question I had here was obviously this hobby can ratchet up credit card debt. Do you have, from your recommendations, a prioritization list for what order to invest in some of this LBE stuff, whether it's belt to plate
Yes,
carrier?
I do. So the first thing that's going to come into play, like without having to go into a whole spiel on use case, is whether or not you are using a handgun as a big part of your deal. If you are using a handgun and you really are gonna be playing around with that a lot, I would definitely start with the belt. If you are not really care so much about the handgun, I would start with the chest rig. If your primary concern is budgetary constraints, I would recommend starting with the chest rig, just because even when I was giving examples of things for belts, even if you want to go the most bare bones possible approach towards building out a belt, and that's getting like not even like a gun belt, that's getting like an EDC belt or like a scuba web belt, and attaching gear to it via belt loops, which I have done. It was like the first thing I did. So I had my fucking $200 Safari Land holster hooked to a Sagara scuba webbing belt. It is a workable arrangement of gear. I would not want to do that for an extended period of time. And again, with the belt, you have to buy a lot of stuff to go with it. Chest rigs, if you're getting the min max option, like getting the Chicom rig or a repro, or even something like the South African Type 83 rigs, those come out of the box ready to strap it on and get fucking posting on the internet. Those are chest rigs are the most economically viable and financially feasible approach for the entry level guy who does not have much money to sort of get into primary load carriage. You can store ammo, you can store snacks. That's about it.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
Maple's saying one budget chest rig thing. I did not do the tap just because it does in fact cost more than the Chicom. But yeah, Milsurf stuff on eBay, really good for chest rig based stuff. We're even getting like decent United States Milsurf now, so snatch that up before it gets resold by boomers and RFCom for 400% credit. Maple, you missed the 2-minute long demonstration on the USGI 3-day assault pack for $40.
You'll be able to rewatch it.
Yeah.
And you briefly alluded to the fact that I mean, how you invest depends entirely on your use cases, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to just take this opportunity and I'll share my use case, and hopefully others can benefit from it as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see, change screen 1, smoother. What are all these settings? Jeez. All right, go live. Let me know when you see my screen.
Yep, I got it.
Cool. So the use case I have is obviously competition based. So for me, my order is going to be obviously buying a holster, but a belt first before I buy a chest rig. Because like you said earlier, you're not going to be competing or going to a flat range. You don't need chest rigs and all that kind of do's and dads. So for me, I got a pretty standard holster here. The belt itself is a double inner and outer belt, firm outer belt, so that I can hold as many mags as you briefly alluded to. I need a lot of mags just because of my division. So the purpose that I carry this universally, whether I'm in Jersey or not, I'm limited to 10 rounds. There are some discussions about increasing that just to align with the grand scheme of USPSA, but that's neither here nor there. So for me, not just because we're in banned states, but also because it's just the division I shoot in. If I were in a different division, shooting in PA, I would need 2 or 3 mags max, like you mentioned. So that definitely something to consider there. So outside of a holster, mag pouches, I have a magnet just for what's called a Barney load. So if I need to quickly top off my gun before I start my session, I have an extra mag there. It's also for table starts too. So if I have unloaded barrel start or table start, I can quickly load a mag and throw a mag on my belt without having to go back to the table if I need to. And then not many people do it. I see some people who have their sort of quote unquote war rigs. They'll share some medical kit on theirs, but I just carry a tourniquet because you're dealing with guns. It's nice to have some kind of burst response kind of situation going on. And then you'll see I just have a string attached to the tie to my bag. It's technically tied to the bottom of my holster. I just swoop that around my handle, my grip, so that I can fasten it down so I don't have to worry about it bouncing around, because you run around taping up targets and scoring steel and all that kind of stuff. So it's good to just have that really secured. I've actually had my gun fall out of my holster during the competition, and I got DQ'd because I went to pick it up myself. I didn't know I couldn't pick it up. You could have an RSO pick it up for you and you'd be fine, but I didn't know, so I went to just quickly reholster that, and they're like, yeah, you gotta go. I'm like, all right. So that's just my brief use case from a competition perspective.
So a good example actually on this belt of a very use case specific piece of kit is the first thing I noticed is that this is an example of something that exists in the competition realm that has no business being adapted to a competition environment. I have no doubt that this magnet has, the capability to retain a magazine because I see it retaining a magazine. I would not trust this to hold up to, me falling on it or getting bumped on a door. And I think that other people should not either. It
Yeah.
does look really cool, though.
Absolutely, yeah, you're right. I mean, at most, just from a space perspective, you could fit maybe 2, maybe 3 at a weird angle.
Yeah.
That's fully loaded mags, obviously, and even that, unless you Loctite this, the magnet itself spins, so counterclockwise, it'll loosen. So
Right.
I'll constantly check that just in case, but because I don't want to lose that because it's not added cost. But from a hiking perspective or general applicability perspective, you definitely aren't going to need a magnet. You don't want anything attaching to you, clanking, because that's obviously noise. You don't want to necessarily attract anything that you don't need, or so that's perfect point you highlight there. All right, cool. Stop sharing my screen now. If there's no other questions, let's see. I don't see any other questions, Zach.
Forks brought up something interesting, which is boots as LBE, or I guess by extension, footwear in general. I don't really buy into the take that boots are LBE. The human body being construed as a load is, I think, extrapolation. But boots are extremely important. Footwear is extremely important. The method by which you choose to, protect your feet and connect yourself to the earth is, kind of something that you should put major thought into. He is right about everything in the bottom portion. Sheep boots can, will, and will do with prejudice kill your knees and feet. They will kill your ankles. If you're doing anything that involves mildly rocky terrain, invest in a pair of boots with good support, because otherwise you will roll your shit and it will suck. There's the old analogy, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, of the rich guy buying one pair of boots that lasts 10 years and the poor guy buying 5 pairs of boots and he has to replace them every year. I know it's a hard sell for some people to spend 100, 200, even 300 fucking dollars on boots. Things that you put between you and the ground: bed, boot, gun. Don't skim. Spend the money. Really worth it.
Great point. All right, so let's wrap this up. We've been going on 50 minutes at this point. Any final words you'd like to share for this DTT?
If you copy my gear, I'll immediately say it's good, even if I don't particularly like that piece of gear.
Awesome. Again, this is recorded, so I'll share it for those who didn't make it. By the time, if you haven't seen this by now and you're watching it, you obviously know that it's recorded. But we're obviously in the Discord. I'll have links to the chat to this recording as well once I get it uploaded and share with everyone to reference. And of course, you're in there, and I'm sure you'll be willing to answer questions and berate others for their poor choices in LBE.
I will respectfully answer questions to the LBE talk, because it was a good faith attempt on my part to dispense information.
Awesome. I appreciate it, brother.
No problem.
All right.